So along the lines of boycotts, the idea that you're going to turn this thing around, this attorney says the precedent is set nationally that if you sue as a gambler or a fan, you don't have a chance to win.
Yeah.
They generally get thrown out because courts have held that the plaintiffs don't have standing to sue. In this particular framework, the promoter is the fighter. All of a sudden, Tyson gets magically healthy enough to fight, looking like a shell of himself compared to his training videos. So you bought into the farce. That's
it's true. Look,
you're fun. You're a sucker.
yes.
You put your money up on this thing. Now, if you were betting Jake Paul, you're naturally happy, thinking, wow, this was the easiest money I ever made. But, I mean, the indicator should have been that the guy was being carried out of a plane on a stretcher for some kind of bizarre effect of an ulcer 2 fucking months ago. And instead, we're looking at these training videos and going, hey, it looks pretty sharp to me. I wouldn't want to get in there with him.
Yeah, he's punching that bag. I always love when they punch the bag and everyone gets excited. It's like,
You may as well have gone to some bar where they have that thing where they measure the might
yes,
of
where
it.
you punch it one time.
Put
Ooh.
the $5 in there and go, whoa, look at that, a 700. This guy's fucking tough. I wouldn't want to meet him.
Like, look, it's,
I don't
again,
know.
you watch. There's nothing wrong with. I'm not mocking people who watch it. I don't care. It was free on Netflix. You have
I mean,
Netflix,
to watch it, it's entertainment, some form.
I don't judge people for what they watch, but to then bet on it and then be mad that you
Yeah,
you bet on it.
You motherfuckers, you ripped me off.
What are you doing?
The time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
All right, welcome to the show, and good to have you with us. It's Getaway Day here for us on the Defo and Lubie show here, as
Yes,
we won't be with you with this program tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day, as everybody celebrates, and also, the Iron thing. I need him for next week.
Okay, so it is next week. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
next
fine.
week. Yeah.
Then that's more doable.
This
Tuesday
morning,
next Tuesday. That's your Tuesday in conversation.
Conversations Tuesday. Yeah,
Cool.
that would be a home run, by the way, if we manage to land Iron Eagle even for 20 minutes. Which it usually takes us 20 minutes just to do the intro. I'm thinking his time is prohibitive because is Tuesday not a TNT broadcast day usually? He was doing the Heat game last night. He was here in town.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I tuned in and I'm thinking, wow, this guy sounds great. And then I realized it was Iron Eagle.
Iron.
And you had Holler and Kevin Harlan for the second game, and big distinct difference in the way these two guys approach broadcasting. Although Harlan was sort of understated last night by his normal standard. Does he tone it down for basketball as opposed to football? I'm not sure. I mean, every play is not all that exciting in a football game. We know that. That's why it was always a killer when a guy would start out at a fever pitch. And there are certain announcers that do this where very first play of the game, and you're saying, look at that off-tackle, sensational. Fell forward for half. Oh, so scientific, the approach of this Mike McDaniel. All right, we have a lot of things to get to in the sporting world, but before we do that, Lubie, we got started a little bit late here. And this was one of the more interesting reasons, because you did what now, Lubie? You moved a coffee pot, and you found an entire almost prehistoric colony of insects. What the hell was that?
We have a lot of the little ants around the house, and they spray too. So I don't know why we have them, but it is what it is. The little one, the really little ones.
Yes, I know exactly of what you speak.
But they're here and there, and it's whatever. And it's not that big of a deal. So I was going to do the coffee right before the show, and I moved the coffee pot. And there's like a swarm of them, and I didn't know I've never seen it like that. Like outside, you see it. I've never seen it in my home. And then I moved. She has this,
and they're carrying shit. I mean, it's not even like a little bread. They're carrying like your furniture. It's amazing.
It was like there was like 2 of them. It was just nuts. I'm sorry. I apologize for the tardiness. I was
no, it's okay. I've experienced that, and I'm wondering where the fuck do these things come from? Because not so much in the kitchen in the DeForest household, but the dog will leave like something that we gave him, and just leave like a little piece on the floor, especially in the living room area of this particular pad, and you'll come back and see like literally, Lubie, just an absolute solid opaque. How would you describe it? A block of ants.
Yes, it's like a block.
You can't even see the fucking floor anymore. I mean, no, I'll go and douse them with anything, and I feel badly about that. That's how sensitive I've become to the value of life. I don't even like wiping out an ant colony, even if it's in the house. But then again, I always So to shower them in a generous portion of Black Flag Anton Roach Killer.
I'm always scared because we have the dog and the cat.
Yeah, and you don't
I'll
want to
just
poison
spraying
those.
stuff.
Yeah,
Like my dog will and my cat will smell anywhere. So like I did it the other day, and then I was like shit. So I did it from the outside, maybe to find their hole or something. It's just I usually just grab like a rag and like fucking murder them. And I like you, I don't like killing anything. Like I feel bad, but my wife won't do it, so I have to protect the house. So it's my freaking job. So I become like this murderer.
yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, you're John Wayne Gacy. I mean,
Exactly. Exactly.
fucking Menendez brothers. Who, that's a little bit disturbing. I mean, if somebody in the legal system has decided that you're either innocent, and this happens a lot with Barry Scheck and his organization, where they've proven by scientific evidence, by DNA evidence, that a guy's been in jail for 37 years for something he absolutely had nothing to do with. And then it still takes him 6 months to get the guy out of jail.
Yeah.
What the fuck? I mean, the stuff says right there that the guy had nothing to do with this shit. Why is he waiting around for a court to decide that, oh, well, okay, we can release him now? One more second is more than it. I mean, you should never subject somebody to that for even one split second. Well, once they've been proven innocent, and in this case, right, they postponed this thing for like everybody in the Menendez family is saying, yeah, they did it. The guy was abused.
Yeah, they did it.
Yeah.
They
No,
just,
I mean, we know they did the murders. They didn't deny that. They just said, hey, look, this was sexual abuse. I can't even imagine the horror of having your father abusing you sexually. As a male or female, but it would, definitively have some kind of impact on your psychological makeup the rest of your life.
100%.
No doubt in the negative. It's hard to look at that in any kind of a positive light. Now, does it justify killing the people? No, but they're 30 some odd years.
Yeah.
They were in jail already, and so they decided, hey, we're going to let these guys go. The whole family is saying it's enough is enough, and that they're at their second trial when they got convicted. The first one was a hung jury, remember? At their second trial where they got convicted, they wouldn't allow this evidence in, the idea of the sexual abuse. So, of course, they got convicted. They shot their parents, and the next thing you know, they're buying Rolex watches and Rolls Royces.
Yeah, the story that we got to see in the movies and the shows back in the day, I guess wasn't the whole story.
Well, there was those assertions were out there in the first trial, right? This Leslie Abramson, remember the chick with the hair? And she was emphasizing this heavily, as would be the only defense for such an horrific act. But they didn't allow this evidence in. How is that possible? In the second trial, wouldn't that have been flipped by an appeals court right away? Because it certainly seemed like a significant component of the entire case, did it not? But anyway, so I mean, after 30 some odd years in prison, and everybody's hollering that they should get out, including the family and the sister and the relatives,
the victims, even the
murdered people, the parents, and the guy just said, you know what? I'm going to address this again in a couple of months. You're like, what the fuck? A couple of months?
Yeah, the legal system's
One
fine.
second in jail would be more than I think anybody would want to put up with. That's for sure. All right, that's a whole another thing. The Dolphins in cold weather would be no doubt a common theme on this Thanksgiving Day game, a crucial game in the Dolphin season. Would you say that this is, well, I mean, you talk about your must-win situations, Lubie. You fall to 5-7, lose all of your momentum if you lose this particular ball game to the Green Bay Packers.
See, to me, I think people are going to put all the eggs in this basket. I think it's getting to 10 wins, and however you get to 10 wins is how you get to 10 wins. I think going to Green Bay on Thanksgiving night, it's not even Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving night.
Yes.
And they are playing.
Just check the weather there, too, by the way.
When they're playing, it's going to be 30. So I don't know if it's going to be a snowstorm, but it's the kind of weather that could lead to a fucking snow.
Apparently, I don't think it's going to be snowing or raining, which is a plus for the Dolphins.
That's a win.
But how do I know? I'm going by a weather report that's 2 days in advance. Anything can happen there.
I wouldn't put it past them to be in this game. I think like Mayo's like, I'm going to go to bed at 8. Like, I think it'll be more competitive than that, or at least I'm hoping.
It should be an excellent ball game, no doubt.
I'm not presuming they're going to win. I do think, though, the next 5 are all winnable games. Even when you throw in the Niners and the Texans, those are teams that are struggling, that have had their struggles this year, that have had their injury issues. And then you play the Browns and the Jets twice. Like, those are the 5 that they have to, those are all sudden death must win games. This game to me, to make. I don't expect them to get to 11 wins. Okay, so they're going to lose one of these 6 games. This is the one that I could. It's again short week, traveling to almost cross country. Fucking whatever the weather's going to be, it's not here. Like, and it's a good team too. It's Thanksgiving too. You're not with your family. I mean, there's just so much into that game that it's hard for me to see them winning that game.
Well, I mean, the public doesn't necessarily agree, although that was the most rational approach I've ever heard you take to a preview of a Dolphin game. I mean,
Well, because
I'm the one that's saying this is must win, and the season is on the brink here. Whether
everyone
it's
is
going to go forward or slip backwards into a very disappointing subpar year. But I mean, you're taking a very rational approach to it. I'm proud of you, Lubie. What happened here?
Well, because
we've changed roles on this show for
well,
14 years. Yes.
Perk's doing it, Hyde's doing it. This is the game. This is the one they've struggled with. I get that. Yes, I'd like to see them at least perform well in this game. I'm being realistic. Like the next 5 are a lot more doable. This is the game that all the circumstances are really against them.
Do they lose one of the 2 to the Jets? That's a good question.
That's the problem. Is I could see them losing one of these stupid fucking games. Yeah. That's the one I'd be mad at. That's the one if they pull the Titans and they play one of these teams that are struggling. Like the Jets have nothing to play for. Like nothing. Like it's a fucking disaster.
It's pride, my friend.
Yeah, there you go.
Jet pride can't amount to much. I bet that's a very small jar of liquid there, Jet Pride, if you were trying to drink that down. Well, I mean, here it is. We've been questioning this all year. Can the Dolphins beat a good team?
Yes.
And the Green Bay Packers would have to be considered, at the very least, a good team. They have a winning record. They're just coming off a very impressive victory against I mean, it wasn't even a depleted San Francisco team. It was a dismembered San Francisco team. And they were chopped up, there you go. John Wayne Gacy reference, second one in the show. Why are we fascinated with horrifying and brutal criminals? And then there's brothers. Well, where are we going with this?
I don't know what you're doing.
It's just trying to dodge the fact that the Dolphins suck in cold weather.
Pretty much.
I'm not sure that it's applicable. We've talked about this many times in terms of betting theory where guys, and one of our favorites that we used to have handicapping frequently on the show, Mark Lawrence, said there's no more of a trend handicapper than Mark Lawrence had been over the years with all of these wild trends and the numerology and the quantifiers and the qualifiers. I was fascinated by it. It's like, who could dive into numbers this heavily and come up with a theory about a ball game, which depends on more than its share of intangibles, does it not?
Yep.
So things that can't be quantified, can't be measured. How can you measure the size of a player's heart, Lubie?
I don't know.
Or worse, the officials. What kind of bozo calls are you going to see in this game? Just ask Danny Hurley. Wow. I mean, did you say he was lit again last night? And here's UConn, number 2 team in the country, to go out to Maui. I don't know if they're smoking the leaf there with Don Nelson and Willie Nelson and the crew, but nonetheless, they lose 2 ball games to unranked teams. Memphis now going to play for the title of the Maui Classic, and you saw Hurley after that ball game. It was an absolute mess, and he was screaming about the officials again last night. So you don't know what you're going to get in that regard, and yet people put these trends out there based on something that happened when Sid Luckman was throwing the football.
Like,
and you try to remind a guy, hey, Sid's not around anymore. You'd be better off having Sid Rosenberg references than going all the way back into the past to find a trend, especially when there's a small sample size. It's always crazy now. ESPN is obsessed with these kind of stats. I guess all sports broadcasting outlets are obsessed with, well, that's the first time they've scored less than 37 points in a quarter since 2023. You're like, well, that was just last year. It's not that long ago. Not like it's 1908 with the Cubs, the last time they won a championship when they were under the curse of the Billy Goat.
I love when they're like, it's like, it'll be like December. They're like, they haven't scored that much since October. I'm like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, they're a bad team.
All these qualifiers and quantifiers. So how seriously do you believe in this one? How much credibility? The Dolphins, temperatures below 40 degrees, outdoor stadiums. Going all the way back throughout their history, they have played 74 games under those conditions and lost 48 of them. Which, if you look at that on balance, they're 26 and 48, something like that. There may have been one tie in there, but 26 and 48. But all of those games would be on the road.
Yes, and they're all versus, you would think, probably good teams. Like a lot of the time, the cold weather is a pretty good team. So they're not taking that into account. They're not taking into account the Dolphins have been down for the last 20 years. There's that as well. Like that, what I don't, Marino was from the cold. So like, that's the thing. Like you can't tell me it doesn't get fucking, in Pittsburgh, it's an outdoor stadium. So in high school and college where he was elite, was
but
cold.
you know what happens, Louis? 1 year here, and
know,
you're
you're
finished in terms of ability to tolerate in temperatures that are sub 60.
I know.
I was freezing the other night. I was outside when the temperatures were in the 50s there. That was not this past weekend, but the weekend before.
A weekend, yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever that was, when it was like 50 degrees outside, and I was sitting outside. We were at a little show that was outside, and I'm wearing a thick sweatshirt. There's no wind, so it wasn't like you were sitting there and then the wind was blowing cold air in your face. And eventually, I was just freezing. My blood must have thinned out to the point where, even in what normally would be completely pleasant, dreamlike conditions for anybody that was used to this sort of temperature, I was freezing my ass off. Now, would I have been better off? I mean, if you were actually playing football and well, I mean, the action of actually being out there and moving around, doesn't that negate some of that, Lubie? I mean, if you're just sitting there and accumulating more and more of the chill factor, but these guys, what? They're sitting there under heaters. I mean, it's not like it's going to be the Ice Bowl, so I don't know how much of a factor that's going to be. But the record is not favorable. Mike McDaniel 3-7 in these kind of games. Temperatures sub 40, 3-7, and 2 is 4-9. So there you have it, Lubie. You're playing into actually about the same numerology as the lifetime record in those conditions. I'm not sure how much of a factor that's going to be, because if it's not snowing or raining and the field is not just a mess, I always felt this, Lubie, that the offense had a huge advantage in sloppy conditions.
Yeah, because hitting and doing things on defense sucks.
You know where you're going, and the defender doesn't.
100%. Yes, that's the other
It's
thing.
one of those deals where you literally can get away with the your underwear, and then go the other way, and the guy, he ends up falling flat on his face, trying to follow you around. But I'm curious to see how the Dolphins will fare against a reasonably competent opponent. The Rams would qualify as a good opponent. They beat them. The Bills certainly would qualify as a good opponent. They almost beat them. And then they handled their business. And this is the NFL now, so you can't cry about the ugliness of a win. Maybe the Raiders game wasn't something you want to put in a Dolphin time capsule and ship up to Shul in heaven. The Patriots game, people were crying, oh, my God, everything was great until the defense fell apart in the fourth quarter. They won by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, no, they finished fine. It was a stupid-ass fumble.
Yeah.
That fumble fucked everything because they had the momentum on both sides until that fumble. And that was Skylar Thompson's shitty fucking stuff. Oh, that's the question. We haven't even talked about this. Daniel Jones getting released. Then he's sitting there. How do the Dolphins not go and get him? I don't like him as a starter, but he's
$375,000. That's all.
He's light years better than fucking Skylar Thompson and even Huntley. Like, how do you not go and get Daniel Jones?
And you would think for Jones, who wants to sign with some kind of a contender, you would imagine that he's tired of losing and tired of being identified as the source of most of those losses, that he would like to get into a spot where maybe San Francisco would be a spot for him, and he could redeem himself as somebody that actually could perform, but just happened to be in the wrong situation. Because look at guys that have prospered that have left the G-Men recently, including Saquon Barkley, who there were questions whether he was ever going to be the same player that he was before he injured his knee, and look what he's doing. I mean, people are giving him a good possibility. He was like 50 or 60 to 1 to win the MVP before the season started.
He's the favorite.
He's 5 to 1 now. Yeah.
I think he's the favorite. Jesus.
Well, only because quarterbacks always get the nod.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, if you're looking NFC MVP, who would be in that spot right now? It's usually AFC. You have the usual suspects all the time. Who would be the NFC MVP if it wasn't Saquon Barkley? Look what he's done for his team. Jared Goff, yeah.
You should honor the Lions, and on top of that, Goff is having a really good year. It's not like Goff is having a good year. Like I would point. I mean, early on it would have been Darnold, but the Vikings have sort of fallen back to the pack a little bit.
They look sort of ordinary, even though they're still winning, but they were playing lousy teams. They get tested, I believe, this week. Did they not? The Vikings. The Vikings are well. They're playing Arizona. That was the football guy's pick. He loves the Arizona Cardinals over the Vikings here. Vikings are at home, only laying 4 points. That's a curious pick, Lubie. Wouldn't your first instinct to be to think, okay, Vikings much better record, and maybe Darnold at home feels a little bit more comfortable with what he was doing in the beginning of the season as opposed to what's happened of late. But yeah, the Cardinals getting 4 points, the choice of the football guy, 18-4 on the season. All right, so what do you think, Lubie? You're not putting that much, attaching as much importance to this game as a lot of the local media
Like, I'm not
is.
gonna lose it. Like, look, if Andy's right and they win, yes, I think that puts them in a really good spot. Instead of being behind the 8 ball in the playoff chase, if things go right this weekend, you can be one game out behind. I don't trust the Broncos at all. I think they're a better team than the Broncos. And the Chargers are interesting to me because I think Harbaugh is the exact kind of coach they needed to fix the problems they had, but they still aren't scary, the Chargers. So, like, those are the two teams you're sort of trying to catch. Okay, if you win this game, you're now 6-6. You're in a much better spot where it's not like you need magic and mysticism to get you into the playoffs. When you lose this game, which is what I think is going to happen, now you
believe they're going down, huh?
You could be 2 games back, and that is a really tough place to be. Now, again, look at the Bills last year. The Bills were 3 games back for the division with 4 games left, like a baseball fucking season, and found a way to win the goddamn division. So it could happen. You put yourself in a much better spot if you win. Bless you. But look, I'm trying to be real. I'm not going to lose. It's hard for me to believe that they automatically win.
The season's not over if they lose this game.
That's my sentiment.
I just think it represents the consolidation of what we thought was a turning point with the return of Tua to the Dolphins lineup. And you're right. I've heard nothing. I know Daniel Jones cleared waivers yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago. So he's free to sign with any team. The team's monetary commitment to Daniel Jones is prorated on what I think is the league minimum, and it's $375,000. So, however they calculate that's all you're responsible for financially. If you could sign a backup quarterback that at least had some semblance of an idea what it was like to quarterback an NFL team, however badly overall his record was, you would think that you would want to solidify, especially with Tua, who, as we know, as great as he's looked since his return, still, like all quarterbacks, might be one ding to the head away from being out, and maybe this time out altogether. Although certainly not rooting for that because I'm enjoying this guy's resurrection after all the conversation there was about the recommendations that he retire. That for the good of his and that may be may have been prudent advice. Maybe we'll see some kind of after effect of this thing. I mean, look, didn't you think Junior Seau was fine when he was in football?
Yeah, look. A lot of these guys were literally doing media, and then out of nowhere it just hits them. So I don't think he's out of the woods, and I still, for his long-term health, probably would have leaned that way. But right now he's playing really well, and he's not getting hit. To me, it's just to double down on what you already fucked up in the offseason. Look, bringing in Daniel Jones in season isn't a cure-all. No. And God willing, Tua doesn't.
And you would hope he doesn't play.
Yes, exactly. He doesn't get hurt. But the dude's won games. He's been to the playoffs. He won a playoff game. Yes, again, it's mostly Mark Sanchez factor where it was everyone but him. But you see what you are with Skylar Thompson, even with Tyler Huntley. Like, he's an upgrade. He just is. To me, to just sit on your hands and do nothing. You already did that. Like, don't make it worse.
Yeah, he wasn't throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and now Jonnu Smith has become an integral part of the Dolphins' offensive success. You didn't have H.N. Coming out of the backfield, and the Giants' offensive line was nothing to sing about. So, unless you were singing a very slow blues number, talking about how miserable your fucking life is. If it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. All right, the Heat played last night. They played the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll get into that a little bit when we return here on a pre-Thanksgiving special on the show, as we're hoping everybody has the best and happiest and greatest of celebrations for the holiday. My favorite holiday of the year, without question, because it's the first of a massive number of holidays.
Yes, it starts it off.
Remember how you used to covet? I was counting down the days when we were doing this morning drive radio. and having to get out of bed like somewhere between 4 and 4. Didn't you count the days? And we worked every day. I mean, that was something that was largely overlooked by management. Where these other guys that were taking 9 weeks of vacation and all this bullshit, we were there every day, every single day. We felt an obligation since we were selling our own time to our own sponsors to
good.
perform for them. And even though it would have been easy to just say, "Hey, yeah, we're not working this week," well, we felt that obligation. Management, I think, had little appreciation for that.
No,
And so it made it even more of a thing that you coveted, where you would have 4 straight days of not having
Oh no, when we
crucified by the alarm clock.
this is my dad, and then the Christmas time where we would take Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. If it came near a weekend, it was fucking great.
I would be counting it from like 20 days on, out. It'd be like November 1st or whatever, and I'd be thinking, okay, just 21 more of these, and I got 4 days off. It'd be great. So it's not as taxing to perform at this hour, although it's still, we're getting up pretty early, Lubie. I don't know. Might have to reconsider that in 2025.
Exactly.
This would be great at about 4:00 in the afternoon. It'd be nice. All right, we're coming back with more. The heat go down, and this was an odd one, especially from an odds standpoint, as you got late word that Giannis Antetokounmpo is not going to be in the lineup. The Milwaukee Bucks, having turned the corner a little bit themselves.
Yeah, they put better.
You who was what was it? You that was saying that Damian Lillard is not the same player? As soon as you said
I said that yesterday.
Okay. How'd that work?
He balled out. Whenever Giannis hasn't been there, he's been Dame. So it's clearly he doesn't know. He's still trying to figure out how to be the number 2.
Yeah,
because he's fine when he's the number 1.
It's not easy to back out when you're used to driving the ship. All right, we're coming back with more in a moment. Now that
the time,
8:36.
Here, let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
This comes from the great Defo Lama. It's the bets you don't make, the chances you don't take, that can compromise an otherwise incredible life, my friend.
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on the Defo Show.
Right, richer and richer. The Dodgers had $180 million to give Blake Snell.
Jeez.
Blake Snell yesterday as a free agent. He was with the Giants last year. 5-3 record. He was out much of the season, came back and was lights out, looked like himself. Once again, Dodgers with the luxury of not having to care about the capital. I don't know. When will Shohei, will it be his great-grandchildren that eventually collect the money? This is way beyond the Bobby Bonilla situation with the New York Mets, where he gets $1 million a year for the next, he's been getting it for like 20 years. I think he still has 5 years left on that thing or something in that neighborhood. But Ohtani deferred all of his $700 million. He's making $2 million a year. So he's only going to get $20 million through the 10 years life of the contract. And then they owe him the balance, $680 million in payments.
What the hell? How did that even work?
How long would it take? I mean, what denominations are they giving him on these?
I don't understand that. We have to look
be
into that.
substantial, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's
so
weird.
at that point, I guess you're looking at a deflation value of the contract with these 25% tariffs that are coming in on Mexico and Canada. and another 10% on anything that comes from China, which we don't get anything from China, do we, here?
Nothing. There's just nothing that comes in from China.
The fuck? Whatever. That'll work.
I don't have the energy.
Sure, that'll work. Yeah, and plus the Dodgers are the leaders in the hunt and the search and the quest to sign this latest Japanese phenom pitcher.
Oh, another one? Oh, God.
Yeah, there's another guy coming in with the same or maybe even a better reputation and resume than Yamamoto had last year. Now, Yamamoto, it wasn't like he turned the franchise around. He did have a couple of effective starts in the postseason. He was
on the playoffs.
yeah, but you didn't look at him and go, "My God!" I mean, who could ever hit off this guy? But this other, I think his name, I don't want to say Suzuki, but it's something with an S anyway. He's supposed to be even better, and the Dodgers very likely destination for this guy because look, he's going to be there with Ohtani and Yamamoto. Now, maybe he doesn't want to share the spotlight with these Japanese stars because can you imagine if there's this much commotion over Shohei Ohtani here in America? What do you think it's like when he performs in Japan?
Oh, good.
Jeez.
Oh, it's got to be fucking insane.
Yeah, so that was that. All right, so the line, I was looking at this, the line for the Miami Heat game against the Milwaukee Bucks, Heat were favored by 1.5 originally. And then very late, I am assuming that this came out maybe, within a few hours of the game, Lubie?
Yeah, probably.
Giannis was not going to play. A very late deletion from the lineup card. And the game went off as the Heat were 6-point favorites. The Heat were 6-point favorites as the game went off. So not only did they fail in that spot, they're down 14 at halftime. Lillard was going nuts.
Going insane the first half.
And then the Heat came back, as you might anticipate, at home. They cut the lead to 5 going into the fourth quarter. They eventually tied the game very, very late, only to have the Bucks come back and recapture the lead. And then there were a couple of opportunities for the Heat in the final few seconds to somehow pull this thing out of their ass, but they weren't able to do it. They did it the other night against a Doncic-less Dallas Mavericks team.
Yep.
So, I mean, do we read anything into that? And beyond that, I mean, the scope and the magnitude of this loss can hardly be measured in terms of what it meant in the quest to win the NBA Cup. Lubie. That was a cup game, Lubie.
It was a cup game. I was going to tell you yesterday. It was a cup
game. I'll tell you what, my enthusiasm for watching that was ratcheted up significantly.
I'm sure.
I'm going, why does the court look so weird?
Yeah, they always do the weirdo fucking court.
You think these guys are actually thinking about that? It's the old Ken Venturi syndrome, isn't it? Where Ken Venturi was talking about Ryder Cup points, no matter what was going on a golf course. And you would have whatever. Here's Phil Mickelson, and you know what? This putt may win him the tournament, but it's even more significantly, it's going to get him 28 Ryder Cup points. And I'm thinking, I'm sure Mickelson, especially Mickelson, is probably thinking more about the $2 million he's going to make if he sinks this putt than he is about. I mean, can you imagine after he rolls it by the hole, it just misses, rims out, and then the first thing he says in the post tournament interview is, that really fucked me on the Ryder Cup points.
I'm sorry, my Ryder Cup. I'm so sorry.
NBA Cup. I mean, do the players actually sit there and think, you know what, better step it up tonight? Spo, he probably mentions that right before they take the court. Okay, guys, and let's not forget, this is an NBA Cup game.
Giannis didn't even play. That's the game they took him out of. It shows you how important this fucking cup thing is. No one gives a Ethan Skolnick covers the NBA. He literally was a national guy on TV and couldn't explain it to it. When we had him on last week, he was like, yeah, I still don't get it.
The honest quirk of it is that and how is it possible that if 4 teams are in the semifinals and you're assuming that they weren't scheduled to play because they have no idea what the outcome of the preliminary rounds are going to be.
That's what you would think. It's supposed to be.
So it's not on the schedule, these semifinal games, but how is it that only the final game is an actual extra game? Can you, if somebody can explain that to me. Now here's where you finally need it, Jim Sarney.
Yes.
Come in and clarify that.
I
which
mean, maybe he'll be a Wicked
no
later.
matter
Watch
what, I'm decent at math, right? Being a degenerate my whole life, we can calculate
Yes.
exactas and
Yes.
see what's going on in pick six pools and what the carryover jackpot means in terms of percentages of increase and the amount of money you would get if you hit the fucking thing. Mandatory payouts mean nothing to us. We're making the calculations, but I can't figure out how you could have an extra game. And in the case of the two teams that go on and contest the finals, they're playing actually two extra games, are they not?
Yes, that's what I. That's why I thought they didn't count because they're games that were not planned, and they are more games than the other teams are playing. Everyone plays an 82 game schedule, right? Well, I've never heard of these. Well, these
So you
four,
have four teams.
and
You're thinking that
86.
end up playing 83, and then two of the four end up playing 84.
I'm like, how does that like? That's weird. Like, why would we play? Why would they play more? So I won't explain that part either.
This is in a league that is trying to wrestle with the notion and probably what would be, as all leagues should take into consideration, the idea that why don't we cut short the regular season from what
Yes.
it is, play less games, and then we won't have to deal with the ludicrous situation of guys just opting out and saying, I'm not playing tonight because it's too many games, load management.
Which I'm
Became
sure.
like, I mean, an acceptable term that this was, very much the whole thing that I hate to make Nazi references, but it was all about semantics. You're calling the fact that you're stiffing your fans and leaving them, but without any assurance that they're going to pay money, big time money, to see their star players, and then you're going to excuse it away not by saying, "Hey, we fucked everybody," but by referring to it as load management. And so it's an ugly thing. But if somebody can explain this to me, I would be really curious to hear exactly how that works. Where you have four teams that are going to go to Las Vegas to contest the semifinals and the finals of the NBA Cup. They weren't on the original schedule, these games, because there was no way to anticipate who was going to be involved in them. And do they end up playing two extra games in the regular season? And if they do, how the hell do you factor that in? I mean, you've thrown Adam Silver. Explain it to me, please. What is the value of this? And now the good thing is they have a sponsor for it, Lubie, which you have to give them credit for that, right?
Oh, duh.
Emirates is a sponsor. So a very distinguished thing to contest the NBA Cup. But the Heat, with a very sorry effort last night in that regard, you think Spoelstra told them, hey, this is a cup game, let's lose it?
I don't think he said
No
that
answer to
either.
Kumpo. They let Damian Lillard, I mean, he's like 7 for 9 on 3-pointers early in the ballgame. Would you, and you have no other, I mean, who else would you be concerned about? Connaughton?
They don't even have Middleton.
They don't have Middleton.
Oh no, that I mean they should have walked away
A
with
guy
it.
named Green that looks like he was a scrub on the Celtics last year. One of those guys that came off the bench late when they were up by 40. A nondescript looking white guy who you're thinking, this guy better be able to nail every fucking three, or he has no business being in this league.
Yeah, 100%.
And so you had nobody else. The announcers were making reference to this frequently throughout the ballgame. Stan Van Gundy was doing the game with the Iron Eagle.
Oh, Iron, nice.
Yes. So, and he kept saying, well, you have, and on the halftime show, well, also, Shaq was all over this, and Barkley chimed in as well and agreed. You had nobody else that was doing anything that you had to concern yourself with. So, why would, here's Eric Spoelstra, one of the brightest coaches in the league.
You know, aren't you double teaming the
You
shit?
have to. Yeah, send a couple of guys after where they that poorly executing their defense that they didn't know to cover Damian Lillard. A lot of
He only
shots
had,
were
he,
wide
had 20, he had 25 at half, and he only had 12 in the second half. And from what I was reading, I didn't watch the game. Their defensive effort in the second half was night and day from the first. Okay, well, why wasn't that the effort in the first half? Like, why would you limit him in the first half and then you build a lead and you win a game that you have to win? Their stretch, I think they play the Hornets and then 2 other easy games, and then they play a ridiculous fucking stretch of like 8 games. The Lakers, the Thunder, like the Celtics, the Cavs. I think like they play a stupid ass run of like 8 games. Like these, they had to win all 4 of these games. Like these were games they had to win, and they already gave up 1. Like I don't know, they're in a weird place.
Aren't they about? I mean, this is the old Dennis Green thing. Aren't they about what you thought they were going to be, Lubie? Where there's
Exactly what I
nothing
thought they would
so
be.
overwhelmingly significant that would make you believe, yes, this is a team that's. And they've had championship runs before with a similar configuration of players. But
But Butler wasn't this like that. I thought they were 6-10. Then you got 2 games from Butler that were interesting. So I was like, okay, maybe they can. And they were the 5 seed actually as recent as yesterday because the East is just a disaster right now. So I was like, maybe if you get this Butler, maybe you can work yourself with the Sixers being a mess and the Bucks being a mess. Maybe you can work yourself into a top 4 seed. But that's like Butler doing that. Butler doesn't do that every game. Butler does that once out of every like 4 games. And then he misses at least one of the other 3 games. So like, I don't know how they sustain it at all. And I think the Bucks are going to find footing to some extent. And maybe the Sixers regain something. I don't know. They put
Bucks are
themselves
rolling right now. I mean, winning that game without Giannis was certainly significant, but they've won 5 in a row. And from looking like a complete mess early in the season, and everybody's pointing fingers and saying Giannis is disconnected here. He wants out. Lillard doesn't fit in. It's a very awkward, non-synchronized effort by these 2 guys, which you thought was going to work and put them over the top. Doc Rivers, horrible coach. A lot of things to point to, but they have suddenly gotten on a roll, and that included last night, a very improbable victory. But if you had caught that game with the Heat only laying 1.5, Lubie, which I was looking at that a couple of days ago and thinking 1.5, and that seems like a very low number to lay if you're the Miami Heat at home against the Milwaukee Bucks. And at that time, you didn't know that Antetokounmpo wasn't going to play. That's why you were getting that price. Would you not have felt, I mean, just absolutely, it was Lou Gehrig time, right? You would have felt like the luckiest man on the face of the earth if you found out you're only laying 1.5. You bought this ticket at the Hard Rock or whatever 2 days ago, and now Giannis is out. You would have been online ready to cash, would you not? And then to see him down 14 at halftime, they did. I mean, came within an eyelash of winning the thing, too, because Tyler Hero had a 3-point attempt. This was on their second to last possession, and this thing just rims in and out, Lubie. Looked like it was going to be nothing but net, and did one of those things where it catches both rims and then pops out. And Milwaukee got the rebound. They had to foul the guy, and he hit a couple of free throws. So now they were down 3. But Hero's shot could have just as easily fallen, and we're talking about a little bit of a different story. So the Heat now are 7-8. And Milwaukee moves to 9-9 on the campaign. All right, a couple of games coming up that we need to examine here, Lubie. How comfortable do you feel? Will the Hurricanes choke against Syracuse?
Yes.
You believe they will?
I'm not. This is the one I would actually pick Syracuse to win. I don't like their defense at all, and I think Syracuse's offense should be able to do something against it. And Miami's offense to me has been propped up a lot this year. It's not like Syracuse has an elite defense, but I like their coach, and I think he actually is a good defensive coach. So I wouldn't put money on it just because Miami is now a top 6 team, which I find ridiculous. But this is the game that when they lost, I didn't think they'd lose to Georgia Tech. I didn't think they'd lose to Wake Forest. This was the game I was looking at. Well, since then they lost to Georgia Tech and they struggled with Wake Forest for 3 quarters. This still is that game. And they have a lot riding on it. This is literally their season. They lose this game, they're done. Like, it's two losses on the season. And as long as Clemson holds serve, they're not even in the AC Championship. Like, not making the AC Championship with 1 loss is one thing. Not making the AC Championship with 2 losses, they're done. There's no playoffs. That's it. So I don't know. I feel like that is where Cristobal would fall on his fucking face. Like, that's the Cristobal moment. That's what he's done literally the last few years, is whenever he has the playoffs in his grasp, when he was at Oregon, is when he fucking falls flat. So that I feel like this is the game he's going to Cristobal. Like, you thought he already Cristobaled. I don't think he's Cristobaled yet.
Not fully, no. He hasn't been bad enough to account for any atrocious losses so far this year. I mean, the Georgia Tech game was ugly, but we all felt that was coming, did we not? At some point, the way that they had staggered around against lesser opposition, and Georgia Tech not being great, but not bad enough to blow an opportunity to beat the Hurricanes, a poorly coached team, as we know. All right, I think they're laying 11 in this game. I'm trying to find it here. Laying 11 points, is that right? What am I looking at, Lubie? Miami Hurricanes favored by 11 points.
10 and a hook. I'm saying 10 and a hook. So
10 and a hook. Okay, so that's
in that range. Yeah.
So somebody must have heard your theory about this ball game and sent in a big chunk of dough to knock that down by a hook.
Well, it's just what they struggle with is look, McCord is either leading or like second in the country in touchdowns or something, or yards or something like that. Like he's been outside of that Pitt game, he's been really good. And the Canes have struggled defensively with versus average. Like that's a problem. Their defense is not, it's not even that it struggles, it's not good. It's just actually just not good. The defensive line was actually supposed to be a strength. They don't get any pressure. And against the run, their ratings and rankings are okay because they haven't played anyone. But when they've played any we talked about this the other day, when they played any competent run game, they're a fucking sieve. So like, if Syracuse is smart and does what the Dolphins, if I'm Syracuse, I do what the Dolphins have been doing, have really long, because that's the problem with Ward too. Ward's super impatient. Like Ward isn't going to have a nice, they've had a few late in these games when they had to pull it out of their ass, but most of his offense, and that's why he struggles a lot of these first halves, is because he tries to make these big fucking plays. He throws ill-advised passes and they're incomplete. And now the other offense comes on the field and their defense isn't good. So you'd see, that's what you saw versus Georgia Tech. So like, if I'm Syracuse, that's my game plan. Just keep them off the fucking field, possess the ball, shorten the game. And then Ward can't do what he did versus Cal. It's what Cal should have fucking done, and they would have beaten them by 20. But Cal started like getting uber conservative on offense and uber conservative on defense, and that's what's allowed the Canes to come back in a lot of these fucking games.
You're right. I mean, they have been on on the ropes so many times.
The VT game.
You've almost convinced me here, Lubie.
No, I wouldn't. Look, they should win this fucking game.
Syracuse in an outright upset on the money line.
I'm not the only one to say this. A lot of people feel this. Like, this is not me by
I
my
don't have any confidence in Syracuse to win in these kind of spots. That has not been historically what they've done, going all the way back to when I got there, which was the end of a long run of greatness for the Syracuse football program. Right? Zonka checked out in 1968. Well, he didn't check out, but he left the school 1968. And since that time, they've staggered around. They've had a few moments where they've looked okay, but it never really got to the point where you thought, wow, this Syracuse team is a serious threat to do something. And maybe even, are they ever considered for title contention? No, never, Lubie. So we'll see. So I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't know that I have the balls to go ahead and lay money on Syracuse on the money line in this one, but I think it makes some really valid points there. And the Dolphins, you're going to say, go down, and it's not going to ruin their season. There's no reason to start crying.
People are going
to fire the mashed potatoes that are left over against the wall or anything aggressive and violent like that. That you can just eat this loss as if it was the Thanksgiving turkey when it first came
I
out.
hope they're not playing that way. I hope Andy's right. Like, I hope they treat this game like it's do or die. Like, it is time to look good and beat a fucking good team. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm realistic. Like, I'm looking at their schedule ahead. I'm looking at the other teams around them. And I think they don't have a lot of room to work, but they have one. Like, no one's expecting them to win 6 games, right? Okay, so win 5. It's hard for me to find this as one of those 5. All
right. I like it, Lubie. Pretty bold. All right. We will see you people later on. We'll be at Wicked Cheesesteaks today.
Yes, sir.
Wicked Cheesesteaks. And we'll do that at 1 o'clock. That'll be the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show. And Lubie and I will be off the next couple of days. We will return Friday at Gulfstream Park. Pick up some free racing forms. That's always
you gotta go to the stream.
Get ready. It's a long schlep, but save $24. But you know what? It feels good. Nothing worse when you're gambling than having to pay a lot of vig to just get started. Where, I mean, people, that was a big complaint for a long period of time. Now you can walk into any racetrack and it's no admission charge. You used to have to decide whether you go in general admission, try to sneak into the clubhouse with somebody, or just go ahead and pay the fee right up front for the clubhouse. Then you're factoring in, well, geez, I had to buy a racing form. They were like 75 cents back in the day. Pay for parking, which is no longer in play. And you're thinking, I have to win big just to get even. Yep. So, yeah, you don't like paying up that juice in advance. That's always detrimental to a gambler. So good luck with all of your wagers. Did you come up with the Turkey Day?
Do we have a parlay? You don't have a
Turkey Day parlay? I'm at a loss. I believe Dallas will beat the Giants. That line actually dropped a little bit down to, I think, 3 and a hook right now. I think they'll beat the Giants. I don't see the Giants being very good. The Lions would look like a cinch over the Bears, but the Bears have been a little bit of a problem for teams, especially against the spread of late.
Yeah, and it's 10. I don't like that spread.
10 and a hook is a large number.
I don't like that spread.
Double-digit underdogs in the NFL have performed at a very high level this year. It's been a short number of games, a small
if we're going spread, then I would go
spread only. What are you looking at on Thanksgiving? The spread.
I know. I would go exactly. I would go Bear if we're with the spread. I would go Bears because you're getting 10 to 11 points. Like that's a fucking and an NFL game.
You hope they score first, and then you're up 17.
And it's not that long of a trip for them. It's not like the travel or is any big fucking thing for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go, and they've been game. It's not like they're getting annihilated by teams.
No, I mean, look, they had a shot. They came back from the grave against Minnesota last week and almost pulled it out.
I personally would do Bears, Cowboys, Packers. Like if we like
Bears, Cowboys, Packers.
Yeah. Look, I think the Lions are going to win. I don't think they're going to even have a struggle, but I could see them winning by 9 or set. You know, like that's it. I don't like the double digits there.
All right, Lubie, you've come around, man. To
I'm going to be wrong. I know I'm going to be wrong.
I don't like the double digits. I'm going to pass on that one at best, but I may take a shot on the money line with the Bears.
Oh, the over-under may be a good move. That's actually not the worst idea because the Bears can score too. And he's wrong. Yeah, maybe over. Over maybe your best bet.
Over-under? What's the number?
At 48 no hook, I'm saying, which is doable. The Lions will put, I think, 30-something.
Yeah, 48 and a hook. You're right. Okay, yeah, the Lions could score 30 points in that game. So can the Bears put up 20?
Yeah, they can put up 20.
If they did, they would be within range of covering the point spread also, Lubie. So you've talked yourself into a parlay, which is how you
there you go.
All right, Lubie, well, we'll see you later on today. Everybody enjoy your Thanksgiving. We'll be back with this show 8 o'clock on Monday morning. Take a look at everything that happened and transpired over the weekend. Thanks so much for being with us, and have a great holiday, everybody.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
We wish you all the best as we leave you now that.
The time.
9:01.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.